hate the weak. If you will climb, then I must prove my strength. Cypress Mount Gagazet. Remember always that name is Kimari.
Sins, my old man.
It's not that you're dreaming. You are a dream. You're a dream of the faith. Your father, your mother, all dreamers. And if the faith stopped dreaming...
Yuna Leska. In Zanarkand, she awaits the arrival of the strongest.
We've come a long way.
You remind me of myself. I was just a boy. I wanted to change the world too, but I changed nothing. That is my story.
The Hall of the Final Summoning.
Go.
Yes.
Huh? What do you mean, no final Aeon?
Chapter 34, False Hope. Yuna immediately returns and asks everyone to come with her. When they do, they find the statue of the Final Aeon, or what used to be the statue of the Final Aeon, but it's now just an empty statue with no faith. This is the statue that Lord Zayon, Yuna Leska's husband, used to reside in. Since his faith no longer exists, his statue is now empty. But as the old man Spectre tells them, Yuna Leska can teach them how to summon the Final Aeon even without Zayon's faith. Before they continue inside to meet Yuna Leska, Tidus confronts Auron as he believes Auron knew this would happen. And he was right. He said he didn't tell them because, well, essentially because it wouldn't have changed anything. Not for Yuna at least. So everyone heads further into the Chamber of the Faith, and there they finally meet Yuna Leska.
Welcome to Zanarkand.
After congratulating Yuna for finishing her pilgrimage, Yuna Leska simply tells Yuna to choose, which confuses Yuna. Now she explains. Now they finally understand how there's been no Final Aeon faith despite the fact that there's been Final Aeons. They learn that Yuna has to pick one of her guardians to sacrifice to become her Final Aeon. Yuna Leska explains that the closer the bond between Yuna and the faith, the stronger the Aeon will be. So really, pretty much any one of her guardians will make a great Aeon. Except maybe Auron. Maybe. She then tells them not to be afraid. They will soon be free of pain and suffering. Because they'll be dead. She sure sounds a lot like Seymour. Yuna Leska shows them a vision of Braska, Jet, and Auron making the same decision that Yuna is now faced with. Again, this is a scene that I covered in part 3. The scene where Jet volunteers to be Braska's Final Aeon, all while Auron tries to convince them both to change their minds. In the end, Auron wasn't able to stop them, and as we know, nothing changed.
The cycle will continue and your deaths will mean nothing.
But there's always a chance it won't come back this time. It's worth trying.
I understand what you're saying, Auron. I'll find a way to break the cycle.
You have a plan?
Checked?
Trust me, I'll think of something.
And the cycle went on.
We'll break it! Despite seeing all of this, and hearing Tidus determined to break the cycle, Lulu and Wakka quickly volunteered to be Yuna's Final Aeon, trying to make the decision easier for her. But Tidus yells at them, telling them that regardless of who is the final Aeon, nothing will change. Yuna will die, one of them will die, and then Sin will just come back. Wakka understands what Tidus is saying, but in his mind, this is just the way things are. You can't change it.
If you want everything, you'll end up with nothing.
Wakka scolds them as Tidus is being childish, straight up saying that he does want everything. Tidus, tired of their rigid mentality, tells them that he's not just going to let Yuna go without a fight. He believes what Arn said all those years back, that there could be another way to do this. Hearing this gives Riku hope, and so Tidus decides to walk to Yunalesca and see if she has any information that could help them. With this decision, the group go upstairs where Yunalesca awaits them, and they arrive at I don't fucking know. Some impossible area attached to nothing somehow in the middle of outer space? Sure. Yunalesca asks him who the final Aeon will be, and before answering, Yuna asks her if Sin will return even if she uses the final Aeon. And now comes the last big revelation of the game. It's nothing we don't know, but the characters will finally understand what's happening. Sin isn't just coming back because they haven't atoned. The Aeon that defeats Sin becomes Sin, so Sin in reality is eternal, regardless of how many times they atone for their sins. This finally explains to Tidus why his father became Sin. Lulu, bewildered by this, yells in disbelief, saying that the teachings state that sin can be exercised through the complete atonement of the people.
It's been our only hope all these years.
Hope is comforting. It allows us to accept fate, however tragic it might be.
As Tidus charges at Yunalesca, angered by the lie they now know they've been fooled into believing, they see a memory of Arn doing the same thing after he received the same revelation. As the memory ends, Yunalesca explains to them that Yevon's teachings and the final Aeon give the people hope, because without hope, they would fall into despair. If people knew that sin was a reality that they would have to live with forever, Yunalesca believes that the people would simply drown in their sorrow. Having revealed all of this to them, Yunalesca asks once again, who will Yuna choose? And after a pause, Yuna says,
no one.
Despite the fact that Yuna would have gladly died for Spira, now knowing that sin can never be defeated for good with the final summoning, Yuna believes that this is a tradition that should be thrown away. Yunalesca tells her that it is a tradition that brings the people of Spira the only hope they have, and that her father died to give the people that hope. But Yunalesca corrects her and tells her that her father died believing that he could end Spira's sorrow. He didn't die just to cover up their sorrow with lies.
Sorrow cannot be abolished. It is meaningless to try.
My father, I loved him. So I will live with my sorrow. I will live my own life. I will defeat sorrow in his place. I will stand my ground and be strong. I don't know when it will be, but someday I will conquer it. And I will do it without false hope.
Seeing that she won't be able to get through to them, Yunalesca pities them for throwing away hope itself. So, in typical bad guy fashion, Yunalesca chooses to end their suffering by killing them so they don't have to live a hopeless life where they'll drown in their own sorrow.
Let me be your liberator.
With this, Arn rallies the party, almost seeming like this is what he's been waiting for this whole time. Like, he wanted the group to find everything out on their own so they can understand why Yunalesca should die. Look, this isn't like a for sure thing, but it really seems to me like everything Arn has done the reason he was so adamant in leading Yuna and Tidus through this pilgrimage, and the reason he's kept so much from them, was to get to this very moment here and finally kill Yunalesca. But that's just my opinion. I mean, listen to how determined he sounds.
Now! This is it! Now is the time to choose. Die and be free of pain, or live and fight your sorrow. Now is the time to shape your stories. Your fate is in your hands.
Yuna needs Kimahri. Kimahri protect Yuna.
After the group all decided they're going to fight and see this through to the end, this epic fight begins. This is a fucking toughie, man. Look, I know this is a story video and not a walkthrough, but the design of this boss fight is geniusly disgusting. She has 3 phases. Yes, 3 phases. Her first one isn't really that bad. It's actually quite easy. Only downside is that she will counter any magic spells with silence, which makes you unable to cast spells, and counter any physical attacks with blind, which makes you miss almost all physical attacks. After phase 1, that's when things get fun. She will immediately start phase 2 with Hellbiter, which zombifies your team. This isn't bad because her attacks aren't that damaging, but then she will try to heal you, which hurts a lot if you're a zombie, and you can't heal yourself with Yuna because you're a zombie. Okay, that's fine. I mean, one of Yuna's first ability lets you remove debuffs, so we just gotta do that or use items to remove zombie. Well, this is why I say that the design of this boss fight is geniusly disgusting. It is so freaking evil. Once you beat phase 2, she turns into this creepy looking Medusa-like face. And the very first thing she does, the very first thing she always does, is use the ability Megadeth. You know what that does? You want to know what that does? Well, it automatically kills everyone. Your whole team, no exceptions. There's no missing. So how do you avoid this? Well, when you're a zombie, instant death abilities have no effect on you. So you know what this means? It means that if you were doing a good job at keeping your team clear of debuffs in phase 2, then you immediately get punished in phase 3 by automatically losing the fight. The only way you can survive this is by having deathproof armor, which is very rare, or by making sure to leave at least one of your teammates zombified so they will survive this attack, and she will continue casting it at random. So you really don't ever want to not have a zombie in your party. But you also can't leave them all zombies forever because at one point you have to heal. It is so ingenious and I love it, but man did I also hate it. Okay, sorry. I really need to talk about this fight because it's probably the best fight in the whole game. And it felt more like a final boss fight than the actual final boss. And it was so creative. I loved this fight. But like I said, I also hated it. Okay, after a long fight against Yunalesca, finally, all of Yunalesca's forms are bested. And she now slowly begins to dissipate into fireflies. As she does so, she tells them that if she dies, the way to the final Aeon dies with her. And with that, will die Spear's only hope. When Tidus says that they will find another way, she tells them that there is no way to defeat Sin. And even if they did find a way, Yu Yevon would only create a Sin again. This is the first time the group hears about Yu Yevon. In fact, I think it's the first time Yu Yevon is ever mentioned in the game. We're like 90% done with the game, and it is the first time the main antagonist is ever mentioned. As she asks Zeon to forgive her for failing Spira, Yunalesca finally dies after 1,000 years. Yuna is in shock at what they just did. They're already enemies of their church, but now they just killed what might as well be a deity in her religion. Not just that, but they killed the only person that knows how to give them the only way that they know how to defeat Sin. Tidus, ever the optimist, says,
"Let's do something more unbelievable."
What?
destroy sin, so it won't come back. And without the final Aeon. I don't know how just yet, but I'll find out.
Chapter 35. A New Way. As the group make their way out of the Zanarkand Dome, Auron stops Tidus to talk to him. Tidus immediately knows what this is about. It's about his unsent status. Although Auron hadn't told him yet, Tidus was already starting to put the pieces together. Auron tells Tidus the story of what he did after Braska defeated him. How he returned to Yunalesca filled with anger, how he tried to attack her but ended up defeated, and finally, how he made his way to Nivelle where he met Kimahri before he died. Everything. But he also tells him that this is how he was able to ride Sin to Tidus' Zanarkand. When Tidus asks him why he would go out of his way to live just to go to Zanarkand and look over him, Auron decides to, instead, show him. Here we get a flashback I kind of forgot to cover. It shows a moment between Jet and Auron before he was turned into the final Aeon. Jet, knowing he wouldn't make it back to Zanarkand, asks Auron to take care of Tidus since Tidus was a bit of a crybaby as a kid, and Jet believes that he will need someone to hold his hand. Auron didn't know how he would get to Zanarkand, but as Jet says,
Hey, you said it yourself. There must be a way to get there, right? You'll find it.
All right. I will. I give you my word. I'll take care of your son. I'll guard him with my life.
After thanking Auron, Jet hugs him and the memory ends. This is why Auron was so dead set on taking care of Tidus. The group then make it outside the dome where Sin is just kind of waiting for them. Tidus, knowing now that his dad can sense and hear him, talks to the bit of Jet left inside of him. He tells him that although the final summoning is out of the question, he will think of something and then ask him to give him some more time. So, Jet, or Sin, he actually turns around and goes away. I guess there's still enough of Jet inside of Sin to do his son a favor. As Sin retreats, we see Sid's airship flying beside it, as it lands to pick everyone up. Inside the ship, the group meet up with Sid again, except this time, Yuna is in the mix, Sid's niece. After trying to figure out what their next move is, Auron says that Tidus' connection with Sin/Jet might be their key, but until they can find something more solid, they have to do two things Tidus is bad at.
We think and we wait.
As Auron walks away, Yuna walks into the cockpit to confront her long-lost uncle. It's a very quiet and slow scene. The two just look at each other. Yuna bows, but as she comes up, she sees that he has simply turned his back to her. So, not wanting to push a relationship with an uncle that doesn't seem interested, she simply walks away. But then we see why he really turned his back to her. Later, Tidus meets with Yuna by a window, where she tells him that she's no good. Try as she may to think of a new way to fight Sin, all she knows is what the temples have taught her. She can't think outside of that box. Kimahri walks behind her and cheers her up, and then Tidus asks him if he's got any ideas. Kimahri says that you have to know both the teachings and what's been kept from the teachings in order to know everything, and thus, he concludes that if anyone knows the secrets Yevon holds, it must be Grand Maester Micah. So,
find him, make him talk.
That's it! Kimahri, you rock!
When Tidus and Yuna get back to the cockpit, Riku and Wakka fight over who should tell them of an idea they thought of.
It's like this, yeah?
I just thought...
The hymn's the key.
Ah!
They know that Jet likes the hymn of the faith, that it soothes him, and they notice how Sin seems to be calmer around it, like when he was just chilling in the Macalania Lake listening to it. So their plan is to somehow use the hymn of the faith to make him docile when they attack him.
Yeah, and that's when we make our move. Might be against the rules and all, but who's keeping track, yeah? Yeah?
Yeah, it could really work.
Yeah, it's worth a try.
Alright, now we're starting to get something resembling a plan coming together. Their next stop is Bevel. Unfortunately, they're still traitors, and as soon as they enter, 2 warrior monks greet them with guns, but they're quickly stopped by Shalinda, who tells them that the idea of Yuna being a traitor is a rumor spread by the Al Bhed.
What?
This actually works in the guard's retreat. Apparently, the idea that the Al Bhed spread this rumor is something that Micah is telling people, but even Shalinda herself isn't sure what's going on. It seems Yevon is in a real state of disarray, to the point where they called her a lowly acolyte and made her captain of the warrior monks after Keenock's death. Seems they're short on believers. It seems what Zook said is true. Yevon really is crumbling. Eventually, Tidus gets to the point of their visit and tells her that they're there to see Micah, so Shalinda goes to get him. Riku's still upset about what she said about the Al Bhed. Seems now that Yevon is running out of the dedicated summoners, Yuna has become their only hope, so they use the Al Bhed as a scapegoat to clear her name. Eventually, they meet Micah in the courtroom. There, they inform him of what transpired with Yunalesca, and he doesn't take it lightly. Micah goes on a fatalistic rant about Yu Yevon's spiral of death and how it will consume them all. Tidus takes this opportunity to ask him who Yu Yevon is, and Micah tells them that Yu Yevon uses the souls of the dead to create what he calls an unholy armor, Sin. While he is inside Sin, Yu Yevon is invincible. As he tells them that without the final Aeon, nothing can pierce the armor that is Sin, Micah dissipates into Pyrephies, and he has no desire of watching Spira die. Well, that was informational. At least now they know how to get to the thing that keeps making Sin. They just have to find a way inside of Sin. After Micah disappears, the Bahamut Faith appears before them. He tells them to follow them to his chamber. There, he appears before them all again and tells them that while the hymn of the faith may work to make him docile, Jet became Sin many years ago, so there may not be enough of Jet left over for him to hear the hymn. If this does indeed work, however, he confirms that getting inside Sin, finding Yu Yevon and defeating him will indeed put an end to Sin for good. The Bahamut Faith then gives him a little lore on Yu Yevon, about how he was the strongest summoner of Zanarkand 1,000 years ago, and how he is always summoning from within Sin. During this talk with the boy, 2 things get brought up. 1, the boy asks Yuna to summon all of her Aeons when they fight Yu Yevon, to let them help her. And 2, the topic of an endless dream ending constantly gets brought up in such a manner that makes it clear that this will affect Tidus somehow. We know how, and he knows how, but Yuna doesn't. She just knows that Tidus is lying to her when she asks him what they're talking about, and he says it's nothing. After this conversation, the boy Faith disappears and the group head back outside. Before they leave, they find Shalinda again, and Riku gets the idea of having Shalinda help them with the hymn. In order to make sure the Jet will hear the hymn, Riku asks Shalinda to tell as many people in Spira as she can to sing the hymn of the faith when they hear a ship in the sky playing the song. It's a good plan, but I'm not sure if the logistics of this would actually work. I don't think there's a way to make the ship visible to everyone in Spira. And how loud are the ship's speakers? I guess it's a way to make sure that people will sing it no matter where they end up fighting Sin, but whatever. Despite not understanding why they want this, Shalinda goes along with the plan. The group then return to the airship, where Sin manages to recreate the hymn of the faith using some software in the ship. And it's honestly not the prettiest version of it. They start playing it on one of the ship's external speakers for the people of Spira to hear, and soon after this, Brother notices Sin approaching them. With this, the group all rally up on the deck of this ship. The plan? Beat the crap out of Sin until they either fly into its mouth or they tear open any hole they can fly into.
Now that's what I call a plan!
And he realizes that the ship has a gun they could use to blow a hole open on Sin. Before Tidus heads off, Brother, who has spoken nothing but I'll bet all game, says something to Tidus.
Riku, you... guard!
Will do.